I like knowing I can switch investments at any time, as often as I like, and never pay a penalty.
In fact, the Charles Schwab IRA doesn't have any fees. No setup, no maintenance, no penalty fees. I'd recommend the Charles Schwab IRA.
To get your free booklet on the One IRA for all your investment needs, call now 800-257-1257. That's 800-257-1257 for your free Schwab IRA booklet.
From Washington, Rowland Evans and Robert Novak bring you the people who are the news on Evans and Novak.
I'm Robert Novak. Rowland Evans and I will question a major policymaking figure at the top of the Democratic Party.
He is Senate Majority Leader Robert Byrd. The Democrats' success last November in taking over the Senate for the first time in the Reagan administration puts West Virginia's Bob Byrd back in power as a majority leader. That was music to the ears of country music lovers.
Don't wear the climate suits my clothes.
But it was not music for President Reagan. Democratic control of the Senate threatens Reagan's anti-Soviet policies, his battle against protectionist trade legislation, his arms control agenda. The leader who now carries the banner of the majority on these and other issues during Reagan's last 2 years is tough, ambitious, and relentless in getting his way in the Senate. Mr. Leader, I know you're a member of the opposite party, but I ask you a very serious question to open this program. Given the general disorder in the White House today and the Reagan administration because of the scandal over Iran arms and Contras, do you worry, sir, about the continuing ability of the president to govern as this disorder gets worse and worse?
I do.
We'll go back and talk with the majority leader about the extent of those worries after these messages.
Evans and Novak is brought to you by your Toyota dealer and the all-new affordable Tercel. Who could ask for anything more? And by Metropolitan Life and affiliated companies. Get Met. It pays.
Tonight, you'll know how I feel.
It's hot. 16-valve performance. It's cool. Dynamic aerodynamics.
I just hope it's not too late.
The 1987 Toyota Celica. One thing it is not is dull.
Tonight, you'll know how I feel.
Who could ask for anything more?
A brief word of advice from a security expert. Your insurance policy should fit you, not another guy. I don't need too much coverage, so MetLife tailors their policies to fit people's needs. MetLife suits me. Get Met, it pays.
She's the mystery.
I don't care where you come from. Alaska will get you.
Alaska is the story that my father told of swift rivers running with salmon and gold. Alaska is so many things I have never known. Alaska is the warming sun calling me home. Alaska.
Now, brilliant nail colors for today's new fashions. Lee press-on nails in 18 deep, rich, dimensional colors. Cotton candy.
Sample.
Opal mist.
Mysterious.
Lee press-on nails. 18 great nail colors you just press on with undreamed-of ease. Desert mold.
Lovely.
Fiesta.
Lively.
Sugar plum.
Luscious.
40 Lee adhesive tabs and 20 Lee press-on nails for a perfect fit. Lee press-on nails. 18 sensational fashion colors. Press on.
Senator Byrd, you said you do worry about the fate of the country, the way it's being governed. Give me some details. What is the extent of your worries?
The credibility of the United States has been severely impaired. Our foreign policy is in shambles. Our friends, our adversaries see the disarray in the White House. Our own people in this country are concerned about the credibility of the administration. It hurts. It doesn't help anybody, and I hope that we can all work together to bring it back.
Well, do you think you're saying things like that make things any better, frankly?
No, but you can't avoid the facts.
What do you think the president ought to do at this stage?
Well, I think that the president ought to do what he has indicated that he should do, and that is help to the very best of his ability to get out the truth.
Do you think he's doing that now?
I don't think that has been done. I think that the president from the beginning should have indicated that this was a mistake, the policy was a mistake, rather than just say that the implementation of the policy was a mistake. And from the beginning, he should have insisted that the facts be brought out and seen to it, to the best of his knowledge, that there were.
Mr. Leader, you paint a picture that I don't disagree with. Under those circumstances, sir, how would you, as one of the foremost Democratic Party leaders, look at the question of arms control and symmetry with the Russians today, particularly this vital, vibrant new Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev? Would we be at a disadvantage today taking Mr. Reagan into a summit conference?
The leader of the Soviet Union has taken advantage of this sorry and sad set of circumstances. I think that what we need to do is support the president. I have done that and tried to press ahead with arms control measures. There are 2 treaties that are now on the Senate calendar. And I think that Mr. Gorbachev has taken advantage of a bad situation and used this as propaganda to divide our allies from us. It seems to me that the president can seize the initiative if he will support the 2 treaties, which he has indicated he would support, and we take this propaganda weapon away from the Soviets and at the same time indicate to our allies in the world that we are serious about arms control.
Just on the question, though, do you think that he should go into the pit with the Soviet leader under such weakened conditions as this? Wouldn't we be at a disadvantage in attempting to write an arms control treaty?
Well, he shouldn't go tomorrow. He shouldn't have gone to Reykjavik. He wasn't prepared when he went to Reykjavik. His advisors didn't prepare him when he went there, but he went.
And he wasn't weak then?
He wasn't weak then, but he wasn't prepared. He's not prepared now. The circumstances are not right just now, but he has almost 2 years. And it seems to me that those 2 years should not be completely written off at this stage.
Now let me ask you about the 2 treaties you mentioned. One of them, I believe, is the Threshold Test Ban Treaty, which limits the nuclear explosive power of underground testing. Senator Kassebaum, who is highly regarded as a Republican moderate, is on the Foreign Relations Committee, has a resolution. The Republican members of that committee all supported her resolution that you don't ratify that treaty now or recommend that President Reagan sign it. You wait till he comes back with airtight methods to assure the Russians aren't cheating. Why don't you take that route, Senator, rather than breaking up the Democrats and the Republicans on that committee and on the floor of the Senate?
Well, there are 2 reasons. One being that the president himself said in writing that he would support these 2 treaties after Reykjavik if the Democrats in the House would remove the restrictions on arms control before he went to Reykjavik.
But wasn't that under duress?
And they did that. And we supported the president. And the president now, I think, should keep his commitment. I'm trying to help him keep that commitment. That's one reason. The second reason is that if he could get the Soviets to agree to on-site inspection in these 2 treaty areas, it seems to me that the Soviets would have set a precedent and it would perhaps open doors to further and more comprehensive arms control agreements, which could be verifiable.
Let me just wrap that up. You think you can get enough Republicans, given Kassebaum's standing and the fact that all Republicans on the committee supported her, to get a 2/3 majority in the Senate on that treaty right now, sir? Seriously.
If I don't have the support of the president and his senators on his side of the aisle, we can't get 2/3 of the Senate. It needs the president's commitment. I'm trying to help him keep his word, his commitment.
But, Senator, his word, wasn't that given under duress so that he wouldn't be savaged by the Democratic House of Representatives just as he was going to Reykjavik?
Duress or not, the thing is that the president went to Reykjavik. He went unprepared. But there were restrictions in the language that would have tied his hands. He wanted those restrictions freed. The Democrats took off those restrictions. He said that he would support these treaties. And now he should keep his commitment. And the treaties are in the best interest of the country, and they're in his interest. And I don't know why he didn't keep that commitment. And that's what I've been urging him to do. But without his support and the support of Bob Dole and the Republicans, we can't muster
Now, you
two-thirds.
mentioned Bob Dole. On Tuesday of this week, Senator Byrd, I happened to be in Keene, New Hampshire, attending a meeting of the Keene Rotary Club. And Senator Dole was the speaker, and he described himself as your good friend. I don't know if that's true or not, but he did. And he said that my good friend, Senator Byrd, is trying to take over the foreign policy of the United States, and he is trying to have the Democrats in the Capitol Hill do what the Constitution says the president should do. There's some truth in that, isn't there?
Bob Dole, there is truth that I am his good friend. He's my good friend. But we're looking at the president's commitment in writing to Senator Barry Goldwater, formerly the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, in which the president said, I will make it as the first business of mine to support these treaties in the new Congress. And he wants language that will provide for on-site inspection. Now, he sent up his verification language, which conditions the ultimate ratification of those treaties on the ability of the president to reach an agreement with the Soviet Union that provides for verifiable on-site inspection regime. Now, that's what he asked for.
Let me tell
But somebody has sold him a bill of goods, namely that there should be 2 ratification efforts here by the Senate, 2 approval votes, and that's not precedented.
Let me take one more try at this, Senator Byrd. I came to Washington just before you were elected to the Senate, and when you came into the Senate, Senator Johnson was majority leader, and he was very careful about intruding on the province of the president in foreign policy. He too was a Democratic leader dealing with a Republican president. Aren't you really edging over that line?
Mr. Novak, I think we ought to go back and read our Constitution. The Constitution provides that the ratification of treaties shall be approved or disapproved by the Senate by a 2/3 vote. Now, we have 2 treaties that were entered into by Mr. Nixon and by Mr. Ford, respectively, 1974 and 1976. Those treaties are moderate. They're being lived up to by both sides. The president said he will support them. He said he wanted verification language. I want his verification language. I support his verification language. The treaties are there. It's the responsibility of the United States Senate to take up those treaties, and if we can get the 2/3 vote, to approve the ratification. Now, it's in the interest of this administration that it shows some movement in the area of arms control. And here's a good place to begin. And we're trying to help the president. He made a commitment. And this would take a propaganda weapon away from the Soviets. It would turn them on their heads, and it would open the way up to new arms control agreements, perhaps, that would provide for on-site inspection. That's what the president wants.
Mr. Majority Leader, Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, let me turn for a second back to your original answer. You said in replying to President Reagan's State of the Union address, you made a response with the House Speaker, Jim Wright. You said there was no trust left because of the Iran arms deal, and many people would agree with you. Without trust, how does a president represent his country? What did you mean by trust?
Competency is vitally important. This administration is suffering from a self-inflicted wound. The trust in this administration hurt in this country and abroad.
Badly.
President Mubarak,
badly hurt.
King Hussein, our friends, our adversaries. And when that credibility is injured, you suffer. The Democrats suffer. The Republicans suffer. Nobody gains from a presidency
But how does he regain the trust with these 3 investigations, one in the Senate, one in the House, and the independent investigator, which are going to go on for a year? Tell me that, sir.
The facts have to be laid out.
But they won't for months, will they?
The people want the facts laid out. We've created a select committee in the Senate. I did not put myself on it. Mr. Dole did not put himself on it. That's putting the investigation on a separate track. Mr. Dole and I can keep our eyes on the rest of the nation's business. But meanwhile, that investigation has to go on. And the more the president can do to see that the facts are brought out, the better it will be. The full trust may never be restored.
That's what I was going to ask
The bird with a broken pinion never soared as high again.
But do you think
that's an old poem by Hezekiah Butterworth?
That's a great poem, sir. Mr. Butterworth was a great poet. But let me just ask you, if you really mean what you're saying, do you think, and this is a large question, that perhaps the president should let the vice president, who is not encumbered, because he wasn't chief executive during this tragedy, take over? I ask that as a serious question.
No, of course I do not. Of course I do not.
Why not? If you can't restore trust, how can you have a president run the country for 2 years?
Well, what you're saying is that the president is irrelevant. He is not.
Oh, I'm not saying that at all, sir.
Senator Byrd, I want to turn, if I could, to the issue that on that glorious night for Democrats last November, when you took over the Senate, you said was going to be the first order of business in the Senate, the trade bill. The Senate is moving typically with all deliberate speed, but I am told that you do not want a compromise bipartisan bill because there's no politics in it. You want a Democratic bill. Is that true?
You must be smoking something, Bob. An effective trade bill has to have bipartisan support. I want that. I hope to get it. I'm glad to see the administration has reversed its position and is at last elected to get on this train.
Well, just as a small piece of evidence, there was supposed to be a meeting on the White House a couple weeks ago with all the standing committee chairmen of both houses, all Democrats, and I am told that they were ordered not to go by Speaker Wright and by you. Is that true?
I said that we'd come down, but we should both come down together. The legislative process is a bicameral institutional process here, and any trade bill that passes the Congress is put on the president's desk has to pass both houses. And I think it's in the good interest of the administration to have both leaders down at the same time so that we're all in the same conversation, can hear what's said.
Has it been rescheduled? Has the meeting been rescheduled?
Oh, yes. We've had that meeting.
Oh, you've had that meeting already? All right. Now, let me ask you this, sir, a specific. There's a bill that is a bipartisan bill in the Senate, co-sponsored by Senator Benson, Democrat of Texas, Senator Danforth, Republican of Missouri. Do you think that's a good enough bill?
I'm also a co-sponsor on that bill.
Do you think it's adequate?
I asked Senator Benson, and I've asked other chairmen of committees that have some portion of trade and competitiveness to hold hearings and get their pieces of legislation out to the floor and on the calendar by May 1, hopefully, so that we can have an omnibus piece of legislation that is broad, that is comprehensive, that deals with the short term as well as the long term. Mr. Benson has responded to my urging. He conducted hearings early. He has introduced a bill. It's a good working piece. He himself says and understands that it will be amended, but it's a good effort, and I'm glad to be a co-sponsor of it. May not agree with every bit of it, but we have our chances to amend it.
Mr. Leader, on the question of Nicaragua, the Sandinistas and the Contras, are you following generally the line laid down by Senator Sasser of Maryland? I understand of Tennessee, excuse me. I understand you are generally in sympathy with his program, correct?
I appointed Mr. Sasser to head up a working group on Contra aid many months ago, and I think he's done a good job of it.
Now, his plan is no arms and no money for arms, and that we should, without the use of anti-Sandinista force, Contra arms, Contra troops, that they're going to be ready to make concessions on political liberties that they have not been willing to make even under the duress of Contra arms. How can you explain this?
Well, in the first place, I don't accept the premise that you've laid down with respect to Mr. Sasser's position.
I thought that was.
Let me say what our viewpoint is, and I think I agree with his. Namely, the administration's solution to the problem in Nicaragua, it has three solutions: Contras, Contras, Contras. That's the only solution that
Sound like the same one to me.
Now, we ought to listen to what the democracies in Central America are saying. They're saying, look, diplomacy. I'm saying, we're saying, Sasser's saying, let's use all of the tools, diplomatic, political, economic, and of course military is also an instrument of foreign policy. But the whole focus seems to be on the Contras, on the military side. Now, the Contras can't even agree among themselves. They don't know who wants to be chief and who wants to be just the troops. And so you have this disarray among the Contra leaders. We don't even know where the monies have been, where they've gone, how much has been spent, and we ought to step back and try something other than just aid to the Contras.
Should you cut off the $40 million that's supposed to go down there in the next segment of military aid money?
I voted against it. I don't think we can cut it off because we wouldn't have the votes to override a presidential veto.
So you'd be against voting to try to limit the sending of that money?
Well, if we had a vote on it, I'd vote against sending it because I voted against it in the first place. I don't think that's the answer.
Senator, we just got 30 seconds left. I want to ask you a couple quick questions. Do you agree with Speaker Wright that we ought to postpone the lowering of the tax rates under the tax reform bill?
I think that we ought to take a look at all of our options. Domestic cuts, military cuts, deficit targets, and revenues. The president himself has put revenues in his budget. $22.8 billion in revenues, taxes, $6 billion in increased taxes.
Does that mean you'd look at Speaker Wright's proposal?
It means that I would look at all the options. We will look at all the options. I would only hope that the president would give us his active participation in working this problem out. Without him, we could do little. With him, we can do a lot.
Sorry, Mr. Leader, but we're out of time. My partner and I will be back with a comment on Senator Byrd after these messages.
Of all the new cars sold in the U.S., the #1 trouble-free car was a Toyota. The #2 a Toyota. #3, 4. In fact, 6 of the top 10 were Toyotas. Presenting the 1987 Toyotas. Camry, Cressida, Tercel, Corolla, Celica, Toyota Supra. With more of the quality that's made Toyotas the most trouble-free new cars sold. Who could ask for anything more?
What's happening? The world-famous MetLife representative is adding new recruits to his prompt payment squadron.
You mean the one that makes sure MetLife claim checks get delivered promptly?
Yes, it's very important.
Snoopy is really getting tough with his new recruits, isn't he?
Only the best will do for MetLife customers.
What happens to the birds who don't make it into the prompt payment squadron?
They go into advertising.
Get Met, it pays.
Jack Rafferty proves you just can't tell.
The fellas that I work with are pretty perceptive. They don't miss too much. No one had picked up the fact that the gray was gone from my hair. It was that simple. No one realized I was using the Grecian Formula 16. It was so gradual. The Grecian has a natural look about it. It's not a dye, it's a clear liquid. The questions most asked by the fellas at work were, what are you doing? You working out? Are you losing weight? And unless I told them I was using the Grecian Formula 16, they never would have guessed.
Grecian Formula 16. You just can't tell who's using it.
Sure, we can import almost everything cheaper today, even food. But many of those imports come from countries where corporations pay workers a fraction of U.S. wages. $1.20 an hour in Korea, $5 a day in Mexico. What happens to our young people if they have to match those wages to get a job? What happens to America?
There are solutions. We can keep America strong. But first, Congress must demand fair trade.
Bob, was very careful, Senator Byrd was, the way he described it. But he said he is really worried about the course of the Reagan administration and whether the president can govern, given the loss of trust, credibility, etc., that the Iran-Contra scandal has meant. I was surprised how strong he was on that. He didn't say the president should resign. Of course, he couldn't say that. But I did get a strong feeling that he thinks this is a much more desperate situation than most politicians will admit.
But another thing, Rowland, is that behind the soft West Virginia accent and the kind of old-fashioned gentlemanly Senate talk, Bob Byrd is a pretty partisan guy. And I think for these last 2 years, the way he was talking about trade, about taxes, he was promising some very tough partisan wars, and particularly, he was giving no quarter whatsoever to the administration on the ratification of the treaties and this whole question of foreign policy.
Well, the nuclear treaties, he made it very clear, he is holding the president's feet to the fire, and the Democrats forced the president to make this statement about what he would do in the treaties before Reykjavik. And he says, we're going to keep his feet on the fire, and he worries about a summit meeting now. He thinks that the president should be very careful in dealing with Gorbachev in this weakened state because he might not be able to do it. So you have a conflict there. He's holding his feet to the fire on the treaties, but he's warning him at the same time, don't see Gorbachev right now.
You know, at the tail end of our interview, Rowland, I was fascinated that he did not say no to Speaker Wright's call for a suspension of the drop in tax rates, which most people, including the House Majority Leader Tom Foley, said isn't going to happen. Bob Byrd didn't say yes, he didn't say no, and it makes you worry a little about what's going to happen to those tax rates. I'm Robert Novak.
I'm Rowland Evans. Be back with us next week, and General Brent Scowcroft of the Tower Iran-Contra Commission.
If you would like to comment on this weekend's program, write to Evans and Novak, Cable News Network, 111 Massachusetts Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20001.
Hi, I'm Loretta Swit with the most exciting new product for busy people since the invention of the telephone. It's the incredible new hands-free featherweight phone. It plugs right into your telephone and ends sore necks forever. It frees up your hands, so you're free to do whatever you want whenever you're on the phone. You can talk as long as you like and do your work at the same time, whether you're at home or in the office.